The Hard Shoulder on Newstalk.
The all-new Nissan Juke. The coupe crossover by Nissan. Nissan. Innovation that excites.
Our own reporter, Barry White, brought us a greyhound welfare story. Today it's a track closure story. Enthusiasts in the greyhound industry, owners and breeders in Enniscorthy, have held a public meeting in a bid to save the track in the town from closure. Barry, what tracks have been earmarked for closure and why?
Hi Evan, well currently there are 16 greyhound racing tracks in Ireland, but an independent review carried out by Indecon into the future of the sport has recommended that 4 of the 16 tracks in the country should close. So those tracks are Lifford, Longford, Yaw and Enniscorthy. Now the reason Enniscorthy has been earmarked for closure is because there are 2 alternative tracks within 60 kilometres, namely Waterford and Kilkenny, and the attendances are slightly higher at these tracks according to this independent report.
OK, the Indecon report, what are the statistics? Because Enniscorthy folk say that they're getting larger crowds per meeting, they hold them on a Monday and Thursday night, than Kilkenny.
Yeah, well, I have this Indecon report here, and I was going through it earlier. So in 2018, Enniscorthy had an annual attendance of around 13,500, while Kilkenny had an annual attendance of just over 16,500. I think Waterford was around 20,000. But between January and October this year, you're right, from what locals are telling you, Enniscorthy has had a slightly higher attendance than Kilkenny so far this year.
Now, you were at a public meeting to try and save the track. Was there much of a turnout?
Yeah, there was a pretty big crowd. I was surprised. There was over 300 people there. And in fact, if racing nights in Enniscorthy had that many people attending them on Monday and Thursdays, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. The track would survive no problem. But anyway, the people there all said that the track must remain open. Enniscorthy Greyhound Track opened in 1933, I'm told, and one trainer I spoke to, Irish McCann, told me that her family have had dogs running at the track since its opening.
It's a lifetime involvement. My father and mother were involved independent of each other and then together as a married couple and as our parents. So I was born into greyhounds. I was the oldest of 4, and this place has been more or less on my radar since I was old enough to toddle along, and that's 63 years, so that's how long.
You've been involved in
all
greyhound
my
racing,
life, absolutely
years.
all of my life.
And how many greyhounds do you keep now?
At the minute I have 14, and they are from almost 14 years of age back down along. I keep the brood bitches as pets. Generally speaking, I would sell on a dog once I'd have won a few races, and keep the bitches because essentially I am a breeder. If
Enniscorthy Greyhound Stadium closes, how big of a blow will it be to the area, and I suppose to yourself personally?
Well, it'll be a major blow to the area. It'll put numerous people out of dogs entirely, and for me it'll be a major inconvenience because I'm only 25 minutes from it. Waterford, Shelburne, wherever is where I will have to aim for after that, and certainly that is definitely going to change my outlook on the whole thing. But that said, there are loads of people who would race only here, and if this track closes, there will be so many people gone out of dogs, and there will be a lot of dogs for rehoming. And I think the IGB need to face up to that. It's a welfare issue, apart from being an economic issue as well.
So as Irish McCann says there, Ivan, it's a welfare issue, but there was many other arguments made at this meeting as well. People say that if Enniscorthy closes, then there'll be lots of people forced out of the sport in the local area. As I said earlier, the closest tracks are Waterford and Kilkenny, which are both about a 100-kilometre round trip away. So if it's elderly people who are involved in the game, they might not want to make that journey. And a lot of the people say this will add, the extra cost of petrol and diesel, which they can't afford, while others say they just won't find the time because a lot of people involved in greyhound racing already work full time as well. Well, some people I spoke to told me that it would be a blow just to the local area of Enniscorthy in general.
We've nothing in Enniscorthy bar the dog track. And when it goes, it's pure bullshit. There's absolutely nothing in Enniscorthy town for the people. You come up here, you meet friends, you have a good laugh, you have a few drinks.
I've 20, 27, 28 greyhounds in training. We depend on this place. Like, for us to train dogs for other people, and have to travel to say it like Shelburne, Curraheen, these places is putting a lot more expense on them. So literally by closing this place they are putting us out of business.
How big of a blow will it be if this place closes?
Be a big blow to the town, big blow to the county. Like you heard it yourself in there tonight, the amount of the support that got there tonight, the amount of people that turned up there tonight.
What about those who are making the argument that in Enniscorthy you have Kilkenny, you have Waterford, you have Clonmel, which are not too far away, so there is other tracks you can race your greyhounds on?
There are other tracks you can race your greyhounds on, but like this, like you heard it there yourself tonight, like this track is part of our community here. It's part of it. You come up here, you meet people, you know, like you can't go to the pubs anymore. You can't drink and drive or anything like that, like, you know. So like it's like a social gathering here, twice a week, and it's a great night out.
Well, I come here 2 nights a week, Mondays and Thursdays, where I'm only a part-time trainer. We train about 4 or 5 dogs for other people, and we keep 4 or 5 dogs ourselves. And it's a family with us. It's myself, my partner Mary, my eldest girl is 12, is Leanne, and my next girl is 7, is Anne-Marie, and then the little fella Aaron, he's only 5, and they're all out in the kennels every evening, and they love their dogs. And anytime we have a runner, the whole family comes, and it's a great family thing here for us. Like, you know, we would be actually lost without greyhounds at home, because it's our hobby and everything revolves around the greyhounds.
All right, strong local views. There's election coming. Were there any politicos at the meeting?
Yeah, there was politicians at it. Junior Minister Paul Kehoe was there, and he raised the issue of the €16.8 million which the greyhound industry receives every year. That's what they're going to receive in Budget 2019. Now, there has been calls for this to be stopped. The DSPCA, who we heard from yesterday, say it should be terminated altogether. But Paul Kehoe says he's completely opposite in his view to this. He says the benefit to the economy from the greyhound industry by far outweighs the cost to the economy. But he does say that the Irish Greyhound Board do have questions about how they spend this funding.
Every board member of IGB to resign tonight. I think they're in disgrace. Absolutely. Absolutely disgrace.
The Irish government has increased their funding to the Irish IGB and to the horse and racing industry in Ireland, which I have no issue with whatsoever. I'd agree with it because it's a very important industry. It's a very important industry for rural Ireland. It is. Like it is the way the IGB then are spending that money, and I don't believe tracks have to close. Like what I would say is that they would look at the financial package that they are giving each of the tracks. Enniscorthy get funding from IGB. So does an awful lot of other public tracks right across the country as well. But Enniscorthy is able to wash their face with the funding that they get from IGB. This is a private track, privately run track, a very successful track. And when you compare this to some of the other tracks across the country and some of the public tracks across the country where they are losing literally thousands of euros. I know the government are totally independent to IGB, but I would have to call into question the Indecon report and the decision of the Greyhound Board to accept the Indecon report as well.
The government gives €16.8 million funding to the Irish Greyhound Board every year. Do the board members of the IGB, do they have questions to answer here?
Well, I believe they have questions to answer. Absolutely, they have questions to answer here. When you see what some of they have accepted a report to close down this track, which is washing its face financially, and when you compare this track to other tracks across the country, well, then I would have to call into question what the IGB board are doing themselves.
Should they resign?
Well, look, that is a matter for them.
Okay, so the IGB discriminating between tracks. What do the IGB say about that?
Well, the IGB say a large chunk of their funding goes to prize money. So on average at any of the 16 tracks around Ireland, if you win a race, you get prize money of around €200 or €300. But then a lot of this money goes towards the refurbishment of the tracks. And I suppose one of the points the IGB are making that the likes of Enniscorthy will cost more to refurbish than the likes of Waterford would cost, or Tralee, or some of the public tracks. So Enniscorthy would just cost more to upkeep. Now, I put some of these questions to the CEO of the Irish Greyhound Board, Gerard Dollard, and he just gave me a breakdown of how the €16.8 million is spent.
Greyhound racing couldn't survive without that funding. 16.8 million is a significant chunk of money. 9 million of that goes on prize money. We'll estimate in 2020 we'll spend about 3.4 million on regulation, and obviously there's a cost in running and maintaining the track, so it couldn't survive without that money. But I think there are other industries there that are getting funding of similar or even higher levels, and I think you look at the economic impact, and the study done in 2017 shows that the greyhound industry does deliver, I think, an impact of over 300 million for the national economy.
How much of that 16.8 million euros spent on wages? Because again, I've heard some quarters saying that the money's been wasted, it could be spent better, and if it was spent better, we wouldn't be looking at track closures.
Yeah, you hear these comments, but we publish our accounts on an annual basis. We're up before the Public Accounts Committee on quite a regular basis. Anybody can see how the money's been spent. Our payroll costs have reduced by €1 million since 2015. There has been no pay increases for any staff in IGB since 2007. We have been reducing staff numbers, which gives rise to its own difficulties. When you are managing a network of 16 stadia, there is a staff resource involved. From a regulatory point of view, there's a staff resource involved, and we have obligations in relation to governance and accountability and a whole range of other issues. So I think it's unfair to say that staffing should be cut. It has been cut, it'll continue to be cut, but you have to maintain a certain level of resource to comply with your statutory obligations.
What would your message be to the trainers and owners in the Enniscorthy area?
I can fully understand the anger. I think any track that was going to be suggested for closure, there would be anger. Greyhound racing is very local. These are part of the local community. They've become part of, I suppose, the local network and the local infrastructure. So yes, there is obviously a very adverse reaction when recommendations like Indecon come out to the fore. But underpinning all of this is to try to have a sustainable industry into the future. I think Indecon are making it quite clear, unless there's radical restructuring, and they're their words, not my words, but unless we change, we may not have an industry in the future.
So finally, when is the last meeting due to be held?
You're probably looking at the end of January, but there is racing on Friday night, and I suppose the only way they can save the track now is if they turn out in numbers.
All right, Barry White, with that report from my own hometown of Enniscorthy, thank you indeed. Lots more to come in the next hour, including another sporting request of funding for the FAI.